Welcome to the Jazzahead live panel number 5, which is called Spotlight on City Scenes. Today we will talk about the jazz scene in Cologne. My name is Uli Beckerhoff. I'm one of 2 artistic directors of Jazzahead. I would like to introduce my guests to our listeners. Ulla Oster is a bassist, composer and arranger. She studied piano and Germanistic in Cologne. Later she changed to her main instrument, the double bass. She gives concerts with her own band as a bassist with various projects playing in Europe, Africa, Australia and the USA. She has been awarded prizes for her projects and has produced various CDs under her own name. She is the first chairwoman of the Cologne Jazz Haus Initiative. Welcome, Ulla.
Hi. Hi.
Urs Benedikt Müller studied biology at the University of Cologne from 2003 until 2009, followed by a doctoral degree with research stays in India, Brazil and Portugal, which he completed in 2014. In 2017 he left the university to devote his time and energy to the Loft Jazz Club, one of the most important jazz locations in Cologne for more than 30 years. We will hopefully find out how this change from science to jazz came about and why the Loft is so important for the Cologne jazz scene. Welcome, Benedikt.
Hey, Uli, thanks for the invite.
Janine Truman is a trombonist and composer. He studied in Hamburg, Cologne and New York. In 2016, he won the prestigious J.J. Johnson Award in the USA and the Promotion Music Award in North Rhine-Westphalia. He tours with his own bands nationally and internationally and runs a CD label. He is a speaker of the Cologne Jazz Conference and curator of his own concert series in Cologne. Welcome, Janine.
Thank you, Uli. Happy to be here.
Today, we mainly want to talk about the current jazz life in Cologne. But for this, it is important to take a brief look back at history. In 1957, the public broadcaster WDR founded a permanent jazz orchestra. This big band is still one of the best bands in the world today. In 1978, the first regular jazz course in Germany was founded at the Musikhochschule in Cologne. So in 1978, the Cologne Jazz Haus Initiative came into being. The aim of the initiative of young jazz musicians was not only to organize their own work environment, but also their own venue together with a recording studio. In 1988, the time had come. The Cologne Stadtgarten was opened under the leadership of the Cologne Jazz Haus Initiative. Ulla, you are currently the chairwoman of the Jazz Haus Initiative. Can you explain to our listeners both the importance of the initiative for the jazz scene in Cologne and the actual work?
Well, to look back, this initiative started, as always, that a group of young musicians wanted to improve their conditions, do more for jazz in Germany, become more recognition and get more official support. This is the normal way that young musicians try to bring their work to the public. And now it has developed this venue Stadtgarten, who was opened in 1986, just to correct you.
Sorry.
No problem. Well, and to look back, it was a long time, but it's a big difference to the times in 1978 or 1980. So everything has consolidated. It's a large venue now with a good reputation, and it has official supporters. The city of Cologne and the country, North Rhine-Westphalia, is supporting this venue. Well, and there's a school, Offene Jazz Haus Schule, who was also founded. It's a label from musicians who was also founded. So everything took its way, but now everything has developed much more than in these times.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
The opening of the Stadtgarten, I think, was really one of the most important thing for the also nowadays jazz life in Cologne. And what would you say? How enormously or how were the effects of change that this opening of the Stadtgarten meant for the jazz scene in Cologne also until today?
Well, maybe it's not only, it doesn't have only a meaning for Cologne, but also for Europe or
Yeah.
for a lot of jazz musicians coming along from many other countries. Meetings with Cologne musicians, invitations from musicians from other countries. It's not only for Cologne, but also for the jazz world in Europe, maybe.
There is this change, was it from last year, that is a center, a new center, European center, what is the name of it, for jazz and actual music?
Yeah. Yes. It's called European Center of Jazz and Actual. We call it actual music, or in German Aktuelle Musik, because we want a larger range of music. We just don't want the word jazz, but there's a lot more other genres in nowadays music, so we call it actual music. And well, maybe it's this kind of consolidation, because we call it now European Center. It's meant to be more European, other people from country there, to bring Cologne or German musicians out in other European countries. Maybe that's we call it European.
Okay, thank you. Janine, you finished your studies as a trombone player at the Cologne University of Music in 2014. What was the reason for you to go via Hamburg to Cologne to study there?
Yeah, that's a good question, Uli. Because I was lucky to meet Peter Herolzheimer in his last days, actually, and it was like 2009, I guess, where he started his Yamaha big band, so a masterclass big band. And friends in Hamburg, they told me you need to go there to Peter Herolzheimer because he's the guy, and I knew him from records, and this is actually a good moving over to the Cologne jazz scene, because he's from Cologne and he was still active around here, and he played a lot of productions, WDR and whatever, had his TV show, and he told me when I played in this band, Janine, you have to come to Cologne. And it was quite obvious that I had to go to Cologne because all the good brass players in the band, especially trumpet and trombone players, and also a few guys playing saxophone, they were all coming from Cologne. So it was pretty obvious to have a feeling that something is going on in this city. And also I heard about this university and the teacher especially.
Who was your teacher in Cologne? Who was your teacher?
It was Henning Berg, of course, and he was the guy who mainly to go to, because he was someone I heard before. We would really be there. He would really being more than a teacher, like a mentor guy, and this was a reason for me absolutely to come to Cologne immediately, because there was a great scene and a great school with a good teacher. So there was actually no really choice. And I remember that there was just played in Berlin and in Cologne for my approvals, and it was really sure that I would go to Cologne then. Yes.
I read that you also went to New York for a while to study there. Yeah. And what made the difference between staying in Cologne, study, and going to New York, and then you went back? Can you tell our listeners a little bit about this experience?
This is maybe about this city. I mean, if you're young and you study and you know that, I knew I had to change something, because I've been to Cologne from 2010 to 2015, and I started 2015 to study in New York, jazz at NYU. And it was a big change for me, obviously, because coming from Cologne sometimes feels you live in a village, because the scene is in numbers, it's big, but geographical wise, it's really small. I mean, if you just compare the Loft and the Stadtgarten, they're about like 1 kilometer away or something, and it's like space wise, it's really small. So you always got the feeling it's a small town here in Cologne. And if you go then to New York, of course, it's a huge difference because the city is huge. There are more clubs, of course. There are people from all over the world. So this made a great difference. And to be honest, when I left Cologne, I was kind of tired of it. I mean, this is probably normal if you're in your 20s and you've been there for about 5 years. You think you need a change because it's so small. But when I went to New York and I studied about 2 years there, it was pretty obvious that I missed something, and I couldn't really describe what it was. I just knew I had to go back to Cologne because I just figured out in New York, actually, that everything I wanted to do, I can do in Cologne because there were the possibilities to do so, like money-wise or like scene-wise, and also the acceptance for the music. It was always here in Cologne. You could like always try something out. If you have a good idea and you try to emphasize it, you can make it happen. And this was actually this idea, this to come back grew in New York quite immediately.
Okay. Benedikt, you are since 2017 artistic director and promoter, so to say, of the jazz club and studio Loft in Cologne, a very important and special location for the last 30 years. Actually, you exchanged a 14-year academic career for running a jazz club. How did this come about? And what does the Loft mean for the scene in Cologne and for you personally?
Uli, before I answer that question, let me just quickly go back to the very beginning and just add something to what Ulla said about the beginnings of music or musician initiatives here in Cologne and what came about to be a very successful jazz scene here. I think one important or two important things that preceded and or accompanied the whole Initiative Jazz Haus and the opening of Stadtgarten venue was that apart from the WDR big band, an excellent big band, even back in the days, was, of course, and don't start to yawn, please, the Cologne concert, because it's also promoted via that name, Cologne concert. And I think it's until now, I mean, that was back when, 75 or something, until today, the most sold solo jazz record, the most sold piano solo record, even today. And after that, after 75, the name Cologne, it triggered something, or people could remember, Cologne, yeah, that's where Keith Jarrett played the solo concert. That was one thing. The second thing, I think, is when in 78 Manfred Niehaus became editor for jazz in the WDR. It's a very important personality, was an important personality for the development of the scene, and initiatives like the Initiative Kölner Jazz Haus at Stadtgarten, and many more musicians from the Cologne scene have greatly profited from his work until the late 80s. The late 80s is also the birth decade when the Loft opened here in Cologne. There was an initiative also from a musician, but not a jazz musician, but a classical musician. My father, who was a flautist at the WDR Symphonic Orchestra from the early 70s on until he retired in 2014, I think. And so even from, so to speak, the enemy, so to say, an institution, not the free scene, but someone with a permanent position at an institution, from a single initiative, something developed or started to develop in the late 80s. That was the Loft. And of course, in the beginning, it was not on the jazz map. It was a lot of contemporary music, neue Musik, and that started later because the scene is good, is still growing, is excellent quality-wise, and of course, the musicians always seek new rooms to perform, to play concert, and then only took until the very early 90s until the first what we'd call jazz concerts started to take place at the Loft. And to answer your question, why I left my academic career behind and took that over, I had always, I wouldn't say apart, I had helped my father whenever their help was needed, because he did that always on the side, so to speak. You could call it a hobby. Of course, it was always more than a hobby. And did that for 26, 27 years. And then when his retirement at the WDR Symphonic Orchestra approached, he said, I don't want to be carried out of this place feet first. So I still have something ahead of me, and that's not Loft. And I had at that time had come to a crucial point where I had to decide whether I'd stay in academics or find some whatever well-paid job in industry, or take that over, because there was the danger that the Loft would close, or that my father wouldn't find someone suitable to continue his work. And since I probably after him I'm the second person who knows best what's happening, how the place runs, because the important thing about the Loft is that the cost to run the place is actually very low, because you can all theoretically do it single-handedly, and that's a big improvement or an advantage. And so who could have done it better than me? I can think of a lot of persons actually, but at that point in my life, I said, okay, academia, that's basically that's not your usual 9-to-5 job. Scientists are always scientists, and they always work. So you work Saturdays, Sundays, you work Christmas Eves, you work New Year's Eves, you always work. And after 3 years, if you didn't happen to me, but I know colleagues that it happened to, if you ask for a week of holiday, they look at you like, are you sure you're in the right position or you choose the right profession? You would take holiday? What? And I just my girlfriend and I, we had just, our first son was born. And at that point, my girlfriend said it would be really nice actually if you spend at least some time at home and see our child grow up. And I saw that the time schedule here at the Loft was much more, in agreement with my future life plans. So that's the answer to that.
Thanks God. It's obvious and extraordinary that all the before mentioned activities in Cologne from 2070s on until today have been initiated by jazz musicians themselves. Ulla, you have a good overlook on the jazz scene for many, many years. Why especially the musicians in Cologne were able to implement their ideas and goals so successfully? Why did it work better in Cologne than in other German cities? Have you any idea about that?
I don't know enough about other German cities. I can say in Cologne, maybe we were lucky that there were people that were personalities like Benny, for example, aficionados and profis, professional people who try to bring it on. And it's a coincidence maybe of the right people bringing it on. And maybe it's also a task for the future to always find younger people, other generations to bring these venues further on. I mean, the generations are changing now, and I don't know if these lucky times will go on. So it always depends on people who do this.
Definitely.
But isn't that also something that's really unique about the Cologne scene? Because I always have the feeling that the older generations, and I can talk about Loft and Stadtgarten, are always like looking at the young generation and open their hands to say, okay, you want to do something, do something. So there's an emphasis to let us do something and then give advice. I remember very well because I started at Loft actually in the cultural politics and creating stuff. And Hans Martin was Benedikt's father. He was always like really contributing to that. And he's not just to me, to a lot of people. The same with Rainer, Michalke. So there's always like, I would say in history of people who want younger generations to take over and give them some help to do it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry. Go on.
I want to add, it's also a form of exchange. I mean, it's a musical exchange, it's exchange of know-how, giving advices or listening to the voices of younger people, of the voices of elder people. So it's a good teamwork, maybe. It's important to have a good teamwork.
Yeah, and if I can only agree with Ulla, without knowing too much about what's happening in other cities, there's personalities, the right personalities at the right time. I mentioned Manfred Niehaus, Janine mentioned Rainer Michalke, people like that who were always very supportive and who are not afraid to give advice to the younger generations and also the young generations, the forthcoming generations. They listen. They are not afraid to ask them, and the older ones are not proud or too proud to answer them. And there's always very good communications across generations, so to speak. And that has somehow started at some time, and we're very happy that it's still continuing.
Yeah, this is very special. I know it from different cities, from Frankfurt, from Hamburg, from Berlin. I played in the very early time with my band in the Loft, and there I met your father the first time. And I never met before such an enthusiastic guy talking about music and doing things also for young musicians. Janine, you are speaker of the Cologne Jazz Conference. Could you tell us what are the goals of this organization and who are the members?
Yeah, the members are all the musicians and what's the name for Akteure in English? All people who have to do with jazz, actually. So also journalists or producers or record engineers, whatever. They're all part of this Cologne Jazz Conference. And I'm one chairman of three. And actually, Benny is also the other guy, and Theresia Philipp. So we are the three speakers of this Cologne Jazz Conference. Actually, and it's an initiative founded by Rainer Michalke, Hans-Martin Müller and Dieter Manderscheid. So there's like this trio of University, Stadtgarten and Loft, who were like looking, I think, in 2015 for an initiative that bundles all this power in the free scene of jazz to look for the interests and to go back in history in 2015, 2016. There was a great change in the politics, actually, and we needed a unique voice for the whole scene to emphasize what do we need. So the Stadtgarten was transferred in 2017 to the European Center of Jazz and Actual Music, as you talked earlier about it. Also, the Loft was founded on a higher level since 2018, I think, and a lot of stuff had to be speaking of, and this is like also a little result of this Cologne Jazz Conference. It's it's like a union, but without any money we take from the musicians to emphasize what we have to do. And the latest result of it is, as you can see in my background, is the festival, the Cologne Jazzweek. So we always knew that the scene is growing, and we need some tools to show this. So we have great infrastructure now, and like Stadtgarten, like Loft, we also got like project money to improve from the city of Cologne, also by the country of North Rhine-Westphalia. And then the next level now is like that we can show this on an international stage. And so this was the latest result of the Cologne Jazz Conference, to ask for a festival, and the politic heard us.
Is the result of that discussion the Cologne Jazzweek now?
Yeah, it is.
Is it just a festival with live music, or are there other modules and panels?
There will be a few panels as well, but the main focus is of course on the music. And what Ulla described as a Stadtgarten, as a center for actual or jazz and actual music, that this is spreading now for the whole Europe or internationally wider. This is what we also want to continue at Cologne Jazzweek, that we show over the borders of Cologne city that there is jazz and actual music from Cologne that is on the same or on a level that can be heard internationally. We go step by step these steps, and I mean last weekend was the best example of that. The Winter Jazz Festival happened for the 10th time now, And what the curators Angelika Nissier and Ulla did was like to invite 10 different artists and musicians from European scenes to collaborate with Cologne people. So this is just a result of everything that was building up in the last recent decades. And now we are on the step to go that next level.
Ulla, could you tell our listeners something about the festivals which exist and come to existence, like the Cologne Jazzweek in Cologne? There are several important jazz festivals, and we talk now about the Stadtgarten and the Loft. Are there other clubs which are of particular importance for the scene and the jazz life in Cologne?
Well, I suppose you also would mention the KLAENG Festival,
yes,
which is a festival of another group, a collective of Cologne musicians who also organize maybe their own festival. But of course, it can take place at Stadtgarten because it belongs to the Cologne scene, and it's good if it can take place at the Stadtgarten. That's the one. I don't know if there are really. KLAENG does 2 festivals in the year, summer and the winter festival. I don't know. There are not so many festivals. Maybe that's why Janine also started the Cologne Jazzweek, because we don't have these big festivals. So many.
Yeah,
winter jazz from Stadtgarten. Yeah. Huh?
You have the Multiphonics Festival.
Yes, we have this.
Course,
right. Yes.
Which is happening all over town, so different venues. At the Loft, we had for 8 years in a row the Plush Music Festival, curated by Hayden Chisholm and now Gareth Lubbe also, although we skipped one in 2019 and didn't do anything in 20. But this is I'd say local festivals with international stars, of course.
Okay, yeah. Ulla, just to continue, you mentioned the Winter Jazz Festival. It's organized, as far as I know, by Angelika Nissier. She's a wonderful saxophone player, and I combine this with the gender question, how you were one of the first female musicians from Cologne. I know from the 70s there was not very many female musicians playing. You were one of the first I knew from Cologne. Does this change also with that Angelika is very active in the Winter Jazz Festival? How do you? What's your opinion about this? Are there more women in the jazz scene involved in Cologne now than in older days?
Well, I'm the co-curator of the Winter Jazz. I'm doing it with Angelika. We are doing it both now. So it's a cooperation from us both, and we are thinking about it and organizing it together.
Sorry,
it's a more. Yes, it's since some years we do it together, and it's a good form of cooperation. I mean, we accomplish some things from our different personalities. Well, I'm a bit, I don't know, asking the female question. Maybe you could ask men about female question in jazz, because we are always asked, and I just think now it's more normal to have women in the scene.
Thanks,
and everybody wants it.
Yes.
And that has changed.
Yeah.
To me, I started my jazz career in the 80s, and at that point it was not normal that women came into the minds of the male colleagues. They were just out of their minds. I mean, they didn't think of it. That there might be women. True. And now it's different. And now the public wants it. The public wants to see women on stage. And the male colleagues also want to have women in their bands. And that's good. It's an improvement, which must be normal. But it's not selbstverständlich. Was heißt selbstverständlich auf Englisch? No, I don't know. Egal. Yeah. And that has really changed. But maybe that would be also be a progress if you spoke with men about the female question, not with women. But we don't have to say anything more. We have said enough about it.
But you
it's more
said,
interesting, maybe.
I think you said already the most important thing. It's getting more and more normal. You know,
Yes.
that I remember I was, when I had the professorship for jazz trumpet at the Folkwang Universität der Künste in Essen, I was the first one who, I had 3 female trumpet players over the time there. They were not accepted at other universities, and I did not invite them to study with us because they were women. I invited them because they were so good. And it was strange. They made the applications in different schools in Germany. They were not accepted. I did not understand it. Sorry. But there we mentioned KLAENG. There is something, Benedikt, you call it junges Loft, young Loft. What is it?
Yeah. Well, this is actually also an initiative that was started by a young musician, Theresia Philipp, that is now together with Janine and me in the Vorstand of the Jazz Conference, the Cologne Jazz Conference. She was a student back then at the Hochschule here in Köln, and she would often come to concerts and listen, and she'd say, if you ever need some help, just call me, I can do whatever help is needed, for free. And so we started with Janine and Theresia, and then Janine joined essentially the second after. So those are the 2 guys that started. That group of young musicians grew and allowed me to really program a lot here at the Loft, because they would take care for a concert in the evening, be there at the bar, sell the tickets, sell the drinks, etc. You could all do it single-handedly, and I would, since I had no money, I would repay them with free time in the Loft during the daytime to rehearse, to try out new things, and then later when money became available to support projects, to program also. So and that's how this little group of the junges Loft, the young Loft, started to grow, and there's also some dynamic to it. Janine proceeded to Stadtgarten, and some people quit, some people left, new people came. So it's a small but pulsating group of people that are enthusiastic not only to play but also to help, all for free. And it really sometimes really makes me feel bad, because I have a position here, I get paid, and they have to make their living, and in their free time stand here in the evenings and sometimes until late at night to just throw the place, make it happen.
Honest, this is what the spirit of the Loft is also about. And for as describing me as a younger guy, being at Loft in the evening to listen to concerts and staying at the bar and meet the artists was pretty obvious to do, because it felt normal to do so. And this, I think, the colleagues you told us, like Theresia and Johannes Ludwig and later on Masha Korman, and they all saw the same. So it describes really well the spirit of Loft, what it's about. It's the same that your father Hans Martin does still all the time, to be in direct contact with the artists and be there, help them, offer them a beer and drink a beer till in the night, and
So to wrap this up, maybe we could just say that during the past 3-4 years, the financial situation has also improved. So we have
subsidies,
a small. Yeah, that yes. No, but yeah. So I have a little pot of money that I can give to this young team and say, okay, you get the amount X, program something. I won't tell you what to do. You decide what to do. And you can play with them, you can just curate them, but you decide it, and I will do whatever I can to help you, but I'll have no speaking in which or whom to invite. Okay. So that's completely their decision. And there's a small series. Janine was also still a member when that started, called the Monday meetings. So there was started with like one Monday per month where they'd curate a new group or a group from another city, sometimes from another country. And well, of course, if we look, we don't have to talk about last year, but let's say we plan to continue with that little series.
Okay.
In whatever format, maybe mm-hmm. format.
Yeah, no doubt the WDR is the largest German public radio station based in Cologne, with the WDR Big Band, the WDR Jazz Prize, and the Campus Jazz by WDR has a strong focus, this public radio, on jazz. I think it's very important for Cologne. Don't you think so, Ulla?
I don't know. I can't answer it concretely. I mean, the Kurt Edelhagen Orchestra. This was before the WDR was constituted.
1957 was it?
Yes, in 1957, and then yes, it was a long time, and I think it's important for the scene if there is a kind of collaboration and a kind of interest for the Cologne scene. I mean, it depends on, as always, it depends on the people who are in the jazz redaktion, who are curating the program of the WDR. And if we are lucky and there are people who are interested in the Cologne scene and want to present them, then it's a good collaboration. If not, well, it's not such a good. It depends on the people working there and on their interests.
Maybe the last point, the Kölner Musikhochschule has an excellent national and international reputation. Ulla, you studied there also, right? Is it right? You studied there in the Cologne?
But I didn't study jazz. I had a classical study. Yeah.
And Janine, you also studied there. So what is the influence and the impact on the entire jazz scene in Cologne of the Musikhochschule? Maybe Ulla first or Yannick.
No, I think Yannick should answer because you have been studying there. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
yes.
Actually, I did. Yeah. I mean, we kind of talked about it. This is a special feeling being there. And I really... when I played my final concert, it was like I was a little bit sad to leave this place actually, because there's a lot of freedom to your studies when you are there, and the really speciality about this Cologne jazz studies is that there's a lot of freedom in your studies, because you are able to choose your teacher. You can also go like from your trombone. You can change from your trombone teacher to a saxophone teacher. And in my case, I had different teachers like Joachim Ulrich for composition, Hubert Nuss, also Frank Rutkowski, and there was always this connection to the free scene. So it was pretty obvious that we, even if we study, have to do a lot in Stadtgarten, in Loft, see the concerts, meet the people, are able to bring projects to the music school, to the university. So this and it's more than a craftsman study to your instrument. It's more something like a philosophy that they try to emphasize with their study, because of the art or the way you do the studies. It's they always like try to find the individual way for you, and a lot of students think had a really good really good impact on a lot of students, and I think this is why this school is so unique. And it's also like a large one, so you have direct contact to to a lot of people, different people, and also different subjects. Like on the new music scene, there's like collaborations. Also on the dance department, there are collaborations, and you can find your way, and you can have a look on the left and the right side and choose whatever you want to make the best for you. The long answer.
Yeah, I think we have to come to an end. I think really we could go on talking hours and hours about the wonderful scene in Cologne. And on my view, I think Cologne is currently the #1 of jazz cities in Germany. I hope we were able here now to give a little overview on this intense and high-class jazz scene to our listeners. Thank you very much to all of you for being our guest. Thank you, Ulla Oster. Thank you, Benedikt Müller. And thank you, Yannick. And goodbye and take care and stay healthy. Hope to see you soon again in Cologne or at the Jazzahead in Bremen. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Uli.
Bye. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Uli. Bye.